Welcome to video number 2 of 3 on chapter 12. In this video, we're going to look at writing, specifically spelling, some of the challenges that occur with spelling. So right off the bat, let's look at some examples of people who make spelling errors. Anyone who spends any time on the internet will know that spelling errors are ubiquitous on social media. So here we have a funny comment about marinara, or how about men's colon? So what's going on here? Right? Why did they make this mistake? Okay, well, in these cases, it might be a case of them misspelling the word, and then autocorrect tries to correct the word. And of course, autocorrect can't read your mind, so it doesn't know what word you were trying to spell, and it corrects the word to something that's close, but it's not the right word. In this case, marinara instead of marijuana, colon instead of cologne. But these kind of errors are made because of writing itself, right? The letters are similar, the words look similar. So the person writing it may be an issue with autocorrect, and it may just be an issue of the person writing down the word, the wrong word, right? Because it looks similar. In the case of colon, instead of cologne, this person might have only heard the word cologne. They don't know how to spell it. They made their best guess. And C-O-L-O-N kind of looks like it could be the word cologne. Unfortunately, it is not. So this could be a case of someone who only knows how to pronounce the word. They don't know what it's spelled like. And these are very common spelling errors when someone has only heard the word. In this next case, we can see something similar to what we were talking about in the first video with the word bear, B-E-A-R, as in grizzly bear, or the word bear, as in B-A-R-E, bare feet. We have a case of a homophone, two words that sound the same but are not spelled the same, as in male or male. And also a very common spelling error, right? We're hearing the word male. I know that male is spelled M-A-I-L, so I write it. But in this context, oops, it's the different male, pronounced exactly the same. That's called a homophone, but it is not spelled the same. It is not a homograph, right? So again, this is a common spelling issue. And then the last one is my favorite. Okay, people who don't like hand-me-downs. This is a case of someone, again, who has probably only ever heard the word, has never seen it written down. So no idea that hand-me-downs, right, are actually hand-me-downs. Right? So 4 different misspellings, but 4 different possible reasons why the person misspelled the word. Is it because 2 words look similar? Is it because 2 words sound similar? Is it because 2 words sound exactly the same, but they're spelled differently? Is it because the person has heard the word, but not seen it spelled down? So they're trying to write it phonetically. They're trying to write down what they have heard, but the way we spell it in English does not match the way we say it. All different kinds of reasons. And it's important to understand, right, when you see students misspelling words, why are the spelling errors taking place? And being able to figure that out will kind of inform your teaching. So if we look at some of the commonly confused words, and you go on the internet, you go on YouTube, you look up commonly misspelled words, you're going to see the same things over and over again. The it's, and the there. That's again a case of homophones. These words sound exactly the same. We pronounce them the same, but depending on the context, they're written differently. So people are constantly confusing which spelling goes in which context. They're writing what they hear in their head. They're writing what they would say. Okay. Students who have this problem consistently are not reading enough. They're only hearing the words, they're not seeing the words. So when I see students who misspell words in this category, I know we need to do more reading. The students need to see these words more often to kind of burn them into their brain, okay? Supposed to or supposed to, right? If I say the first one and the second one, again, they're pronounced exactly the same. I can't really hear supposed to. The ed ending melds together with the sound in the preposition to, so supposed to becomes supposed to, or some people say supposed to, right? So again, the person is writing down what they hear. Doggy dog world should be dog eat dog world, just like hand-me-downs are not hand-me-downs. Okay, so why, again, as a teacher, as an educator, why are the students misspelling the word? Okay, and which spelling mistakes are more serious? Okay, because some spelling mistakes, they can be there if they're very common, right? They have a very simple explanation, then it might just be a case where you can remind the student of the difference. If it's something more serious, then that might need to be addressed. Okay. Thinking about other words that show up on a list of words that are commonly misspelled, affect or effect, which are often just pronounced effect with that schwa sound, affect. Okay, which one's a verb? Which one's a noun? Again, does the student clearly pronounce these words differently in their dialect, or does the student pronounce these words exactly the same? If the student speaks a dialect of English where these words are pronounced the same, they will probably have more trouble remembering which one is which. These words, insure, are pronounced exactly the same no matter what your dialect is. Pure homophones. So again, being able to expose the children to these, expose your students to words like this, vocabulary like this in context. The students need to read more to understand these kind of things. Similar to capital and capital, it's pronounced exactly the same. The different spelling has a different meaning. So getting your students to understand reading things about different subject matter, seeing these words in different contexts to know when the meaning is. Some words like then and then, they are pronounced differently. The confusion just comes in the fact that they're spelled so similarly. There's only one letter difference, and it's the vowel. So it's just very easy and could be a mistake that when pointed out, the student will recognize it themselves and go, oops, it's just a simple mistake. The student was writing quickly or typing quickly, and your brain just made a little, had a little brain fart there. So pointing that out to the student, getting the student to proofread their own work, getting students to peer review and proofread each other's work to find these little mistakes. Other words like advice and advise, spelled differently, pronounced differently, but the meaning is very similar. Really, one's a noun, one's a noun, one's a verb. Okay, the noun form advice ends in an S sound, so it really seems like it should be spelled with an S, but it's spelled with a C, and the one that's spelled with an S sounds more like a Z, advise. So again, words that are very close in meaning, that look very much the same, these are going to give anybody difficulty. But if you've got a student with dyslexia or some other kind of reading disability, these words might be just almost impossible. Similarly, words like accept and accept, spelled differently, pronounced differently, totally different meaning, but they look so similar, right? If you're just briefly glancing at it, it could be very easy when you're reading to read the wrong thing, or when you're writing to write the wrong thing. So just being aware of, different spelling errors or different reading errors if you have a student reading aloud and they read the wrong word, they read it incorrectly. Well, there are lots of different reasons why that might be happening. And again, understanding why the error is happening may determine how you want to reinforce that in your teaching. There are different ways you might adjust your instruction to address different issues. Principle is another one. Right? Some of you might be scratching your head going, wait a minute, which one was which? Let me remember. Okay. Let's watch this little quick video from a YouTuber that I highly recommend if you're interested in languages and you find languages as interesting and as humorous as I do.
English, I need your help.
Yeah, French, what's up?
How do you pronounce this word?
Oh, yeah, that's though.
Though. Okay. So then this must be throw?
No, come on, that's obviously through.
Huh, through. Okay, well then this must be do?
No, come on, that's like the first one. It's dough.
Dough. Okay, like well, if then that's dough, then this must be go.
That's cough?
Cough? What? GH? GH makes really?
Right, yeah, well, because we like to change it up a little.
Well, then if that's cough, then this must be tough.
Tough?
Close.
It's actually tough.
Tough.
Tough?
Not tough.
Not tough. Tough? Yeah.
All right, so again, a quick little funny video to show you how confusing English spelling can be for a native English speaker. But then think of it, if English is your second language or your third language, then it can be incredibly confusing. Okay, so why don't we just make it easier on ourselves? If we have these three words, they're all pronounced to, but we have different spellings. The preposition to meaning also, and then the number two. But why not just, we pronounce it the same, right? And very, very rarely are we ever confused about which to the person means when we're talking to each other, right? If we're just having a conversation, how often do you think someone would be confused whether it's TOO or TWO? It's almost never, right? The context is usually very clear when I'm speaking. So if I can pronounce these three very different words the same, why not spell them the same? Why not something like TU for two. I saw two ducks running to the river. I saw a goose too. Okay. Why not? Wouldn't that be easier and make more sense if every word that was pronounced the same was also spelled the same? Okay, so is there any benefit to that? Is there any reason for that? Wouldn't it be a better writing system? Should we create a writing system in which every word that is pronounced the same is also spelled the same? You know, newsflash, many languages in the world work like this. There are many languages that are more phonetic and more uniform than English. So if you heard the word to, it's going to be spelled a certain way, and it will always be spelled that way. There's not going to be any difference. What's pronounced one way is spelled one way, and it's equivalent. In English, we don't have that method. Well, let's go all the way back to chapter 1, at the beginning of the semester, when we talked about communication. We have a sender who's sending a message. You can be either talking to me or you can be writing, sending me a written message, but you're going to have some kind of thought or message in your brain that you want to convey to me. That signal has to be encoded. You encode that by the words coming out of your mouth, spoken words, or you encode it in text, and you're going to write it down in some way or type it, right? Then that message gets decoded by the receiver. They understand what you're saying, or they read what you're saying. And then if they want to give you some feedback, it has to go through the same process to go from receiver back to sender. But in that middle, right, whether you're talking to somebody or whether you're writing to somebody, there's always some kind of noise. There could be literal noise. If I'm talking to you and it's noisy, there's all kinds of noise that might drown out my speech, that might distract you, and you literally cannot decode the message because you can't hear what I'm saying, right? But it doesn't have to be literal noise. It can be all kinds of things going on. Situational, okay, contextual. We talked about how when you're writing things down, a lot of things can get lost in translation between the person writing and the person reading because we are lacking all of that context. Okay, we might miss out that the person is being sarcastic and we think that they're being serious because we can't tell. We can't see the look on their face. We can't hear the tone of their voice when we're reading that, text message or email. That would be noise, right? There's something that could be interfering with the communication process. When we're talking about writing, okay, so again, if I could write down a word and for one pronunciation, I have one spelling. The word to is always spelled T-U. No matter the meaning or the context, to is spelled T-U. It's a one-to-one correlation. If we had this one-to-one correlation in English, like some other languages do, writing is easier, right? I have the word to, it's spelled T-U, it's always spelled T-U. Writing is so much easier. But what would happen to reading? Reading would be undoubtedly harder. A reader would be able to figure out what word each T-U represented in this sentence, but not as easily as with the present system, okay? So if I'm reading this, I saw two ducks running to the river, I saw a goose too, I need the context. I need to consider the placement of the word in the sentence. I need to look at the grammar. I need to look at the other words around the word to figure out if it's the number to or the preposition to, or does it mean to as in also. I also saw a goose. Context becomes paramount. In a writing system like we have in English, where I can spell each of those words differently, then I don't need context. If I see the word TWO, I know that is the number 2. It doesn't matter what the context is. TWO always means number 2, right? I cannot confuse TWO with the word TOO. The different spellings make it easier for the reader. It makes it harder for the writer because the writer has to think about the context and which spelling they need to use when they're writing. The spelling system that we have in English favors readers over writers because it maximizes the differences between homonyms. Those are the words that are pronounced the same. This is redundancy. We talked about redundancy in chapter 1. So a person reading this sentence above would know the meaning of the different words too with the knowledge of grammar. The grammar will help you figure out what each word to means. But having a more complicated spelling tells the reader right away what word is present. Is it TO or TOO or TWO? The reader can see that immediately without the context. So in this communication between sender and receiver, the receiver always wants to have clear distinctions between words in the message. The reader always wants to see the difference between words. The sender wants ease of delivery, right? The person writing would prefer the writing to be and the spelling to be as easy as possible. It makes writing easier. The spelling system in English favors the reader over the writer, right? It's easier to read than it is to write in English. Not every language is the same. According to your textbook, this makes good sense. I won't say if it's good or not, but it's the reality. This is how the English language works. Okay? In real world, there are multiple readers for every writer. If you're fortunate enough to write texts for publication, you will have an audience of hundreds or thousands, maybe even millions. If you're the next J.K. Rowling or, Stephen King, millions of people read your book. If the task of writing is made easier, that will help one person, the writer. But it'll complicate things for many people, those millions of readers. So again, according to your textbook author, it's better to complicate the writer's task and make the reading process more efficient. So in the English language, yes, the writing is more complicated, the reading is more efficient. Other languages work differently. Is it better or is it worse? Which way is better? Which way is worse? That's why I put a question mark. I'm not going to make a judgment call, okay? But the reality is that's the way English writing works. Reading is easier than writing. Okay, video number 3, we're going to delve into subject-verb agreement and pronouns.